Sounds good.
Guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast, where we bring in experts from around the franchising industry, technology, marketing, et cetera, and give you guys practical, hands-on advice that can help you to grow a thriving business. Now, I've got with me the founder and CEO of an organization called Boostly. His name's Shane Murphy. He's actually local with me. We just met recently through an introduction, but Boostly is the leading SMS provider for the restaurant industry, SMS marketing. So I know a lot of the brands that we work with and a lot of the brands in this industry, you're trying to figure out what's the best strategy to boost your text SMS marketing performance. And so that's actually what the topic is that we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into that in more depth, I want to tell you a little bit more about Shane because he's founded a couple of businesses now. He's also led large sales organizations for major groups like Jolt, and he knows this space inside and out. So a couple of things that you might not know about Shane though are he's actually the father of three boys, soccer coach. He studied jazz studies and trombone performance in college in Michigan, which I found a little fascinating. And he's like a super Irish history nerd. So if you want to know, there is a language called Irish, and he studied it before. So Shane, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about Boostly. Thanks for being on the show with me.
You bet. I'm so excited to be here and to talk on these topics. This is going to be great. Yeah, my background has, I've largely spent the last, decade here focused on the franchise space, specifically in the restaurant world. And that spanned from operations where, at Jolt, they're a operations management system for all types of franchise businesses. And that was my first exposure into this world and eventually led to me going and founding an online ordering company that we built and sold, and then that led to being on the marketing side for restaurants and franchises that led to Boostly as it is today, where we really focus on SMS marketing and helping brands to really nail their SMS marketing strategy and leveraging all of the data that they have under the hood to do that in a way that doesn't require, you to hire a bunch of marketers and data analysts and to really do that effectively through technology. And so that's what we've been focusing on for the last 7 years. And the franchise world has been what I've been doing for the last 10 to 12.
Awesome. Well, I'm super glad to have you. What a good background, especially with all the stuff that's kind of changing right now in the texting compliance regulatory world. In fact, if you don't mind, maybe we start with a little bit of compliance discussion because in fact, no joke, I was talking to another technology partner, or not partner, but supplier. And he mentioned, he's like, oh, yeah, I talked to somebody over at Twilio and they said this was fine. So we built our technology around this. And I was like, dude, you do not have a compliant opt-in. Like you can't do that. Like you build the
Yeah.
technology around that, you are going to get your pantsuit off. So maybe you deal in this world as much as we do, actually more so because it's all SMS, right? What are some of the things that you're seeing that people need to be watching right now in the world with respect to compliance and building databases that are compliant so you can uh, confidently market to them using texting? There are a lot of big brands out there and portfolio companies that are terrified of this. I know this
Mhm.
personally as I talk to them. So give us some wisdom and help us understand like what's changing and also just ways you can be compliant and cautious.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right. Like a lot of brands are scared of SMS marketing because of this compliance issue, because there have been really big names that have had, hundreds of millions of dollars in fines for not following the best practices.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of companies, you know, you set it up and they just say, "Hey, here are the rules, but do what you want," and open the brands up to all of this liability. And so a lot of those stories have really put a lot of fear in people, and that's understandable. So one of the basic um, things to know about the SMS world is it is a federally regulated space. There's something called the TCPA, which is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which governs under what circumstances can you message consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And on the marketing side, there's a world of transactional texting where I'm going to text you a receipt for your order today, or I'm going to like give you these real-time transactional texts. And that doesn't necessarily impact these laws. It's when you start doing marketing related messaging that all of the compliance issues come in.
Mhm.
And this spans from probably the most fundamental component of this is gathering opt-in consent, where you can't just um, start texting people just because you have their phone number. You have to obtain their consent to receive text messages, and you have to let them know what frequency they're going to receive it. There's a lot of legal disclaimers you have to give to them at the time when they're opting in. You can't just hide it in like a terms and conditions link like you
Uh-huh.
could with email. And that's one of the differences is some people try to approach SMS the exact same way they have as with email.
Mhm.
And if you do that, you're opening yourself up to liabilities because if you violate the TCPA, it is the fines escalate really quickly. It's $500 in fines per message per person. So if you message, 1,000 people 4 times, you just that equates to a $20 million liability. So it can put these small franchise businesses out of business completely. And it only takes one person to complain and go into litigation, and there are bad actors out there.
Mhm.
So making sure that you live a compliant strategy is super, super crucial. And that's part of what goes into vetting um, the vendors that you should use and things is make sure
Mhm.
that you build these lists compliantly. There are a lot of ways to do that I'm sure that we can talk about.
Yeah.
But the fundamental component is opt-in consent is crucial, and there are certain things that you can and can't communicate in SMS.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second because we all drive. We've been driving cars, for over 100 years in this country almost, right? So at least they've been available. When you're driving down a two-lane highway and you're both going 65 miles an hour, there's a cumulative 130-mile-an-hour difference between you. That's a dangerous situation. And you're passing each other within like sometimes a foot or two, right? With these huge vehicles that weigh 5 to 6,000 pounds sometimes. Like that's a freaking dangerous situation, but we're used to it. We're used to it. So we're just like all day long, we're driving around these on these roads in these death machines, right? And we don't even think about it. SMS compliance, I feel is kind of the same way. Like if you once you become comfortable with it and you understand the rules and you follow the rules, it's not really that scary.
Right.
It's really, guys, it's really not that scary. I mean, we both live in a world where we operate platforms that do this stuff, right? If it were super scary like that, we wouldn't operate platforms that do this stuff, right? So just realize, yes, it's intimidating, but if you understand the rules and they're kind of straightforward, you follow them properly. You work with tools like Booster, like ClientTether, another tool that helps you manage that compliance. You're going to be fine. And so I
Yep.
want to make sure, like, yes, we're talking about scary stuff. Yes, it can be a lot of liability. Just do it right and put in processes where your franchise operators are forced to follow the compliance rules as well with the tools that are in place. You're fine. But if you're like, hey, here, get a Google sheet and then get this little weird plugin that's cheap and then start texting people, recipe for disaster, right? No compliance automation. So let's talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind, Shane. Like, how should franchise systems that feel like they've got roll up liability potential here? What are some ways that they can ensure or things they should be looking for that will help them maintain compliance, even when their franchise operators might be ignorant to what's required to be compliant?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to really just like you said, this isn't complicated and it's actually very easy to
Mhm.
follow the rules. Um, but find the first thing is find the vendors that aren't going to open you up to letting your franchisees do it the wrong way. For example, if there's ever a vendor that says what you what you had mentioned of, yeah, just upload that spreadsheet and you can start texting everybody. That's a red flag. If they're not facilitating opt-in consent, run away from that vendor. That's the first thing that a franchisor can do is just make sure that you're vetting the vendor for how they to make sure they have an opt-in process in the very beginning. And then that flows down to the franchisees very, very easily
Mhm.
of, hey, there you might have people who join by texting a keyword to a phone number or scanning a QR code, or there's a web form that goes on the website and it all just comes in through a compliant way. And that's what you give to the franchisees. And most companies that are legit SMS marketing vendors will try to enforce that. There are some that don't. And so you just have to pick that vendor from the beginning.
Yeah. And can you mentioned three channels, right? You mentioned, hey, you got short code opt-ins, like so, hey, reply help to 6300 and we'll send a visiting angel to your house to see how we can help your aging parent, right? Something like that. That's a different set of rules for opt-in than somebody who fills out a digital form. Slightly. There are nuances. And I see people, especially attorneys, God bless y'all, where they're applying the wrong rule set to the wrong situation and they're creating a headache and a mess. And so maybe would you delineate between those three things? Like if you're doing short code QR, I guess QR and website, usually a QR leads to a website, so you're pretty safe. But this is the two really, like a digital opt-in on like a web property with a form versus a short code opt-in. Could you maybe delineate that for people?
Yeah, and the core principle at the heart of this is you want to be able to verify that the person who owns that phone number is opting in. And so if someone is texting a keyword to a phone number, you know that text came from that person's device.
Mm-hmm.
And so that that is 100% compliant. You can now text that person on an ongoing basis. From if it's coming through a website, for instance, um, you don't know if it was you putting in my phone number or I put in some random person's phone number. And so generally, if it's coming through a digital format like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they're the best practice is that that would then trigger a welcome message to the consumer when they enter their phone number into the website, and they would need to reply why to confirm their opt-in. It's called a double opt-in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the best way to be safe and compliant from a digital opt-in perspective. When you're using a QR code, for instance, there are QR codes that you can build that literally just auto-populate the keyword to hit send from the device so you don't have to go through the double opt-in process. They just scan the QR code, hit send, and it's there. Um, so it would function the same as a text to join
Mm-hmm.
method.
Gotcha. Cool. No, I appreciate that. Let's shift gears for a minute. Compliance is kind of boring, scary, etc. But I hope you guys get like there are just some basic rules, right? Opt out. There's really no workaround for opt out. Like you have to have an automated opt out process. If somebody replies, "Stop," "F off," "Wrong number," "Not interested," things like that, you need to have a systemic way to stop texting that doesn't require a human to read that text, wheel their chair over to the corner, get on the typewriter, put an envelope in the mail, and send it to someone. And ask like it's got to be automated, guys. Depending upon a human to do anything, even go into your system and turn off texting, is going to create failure. So you got to make sure your system's smart enough to help with automated compliance universally. Just want to make sure we talk about that. Anything you'd add to that, Shane? I know you guys have to deal with opt out all the time as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that sometimes you don't think about because it's just like it has to be done. If there are, 5 or 6 different variants of stop that if somebody texts you, you have to um, opt them out, never send them a text again. You have to maintain the record that they opted out, and you have to give them a response. You can't just not text them again. You have to give them a response confirming that they opted out,
Mm-hmm.
and it really just needs to be automated.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Too much liability there. That's really the juncture of
Correct.
liability. If somebody says stop, or if you're texting someone that has not opted in, the two places you can create liability, really the
Yep.
two main ones. Also, texting inappropriate things, texting about cannabis or like drugs or mortgages. Like there are different rules for telecoms and communications around regulated industries, but we don't need to get into that because that's not really the point of the message today. But can we talk about engagement strategies that work. I know you guys, this is your lifeblood, right? So what have you seen that some novel, creative ways that can create engagement through the medium of texting?
Yeah, so I mean, there are several, standard general use cases that come to mind of, hey, I'm going to be texting a promotion to my audience. And I'm going to text them a 10% off promotion. Here's a promo code. It expires at this day or time. One thing that I'll say there is putting expiration times is really helpful for this type of engagement, because it drives the urgency. So if I am texting a discount or a promotion, put an expiration time in there, give them a way to access that. It might be through a link or instructions on how to redeem that. That's probably one of the most common use cases in SMS marketing. But there are also non-discount ways to leverage SMS. And this could be, there's like the side of awareness. I want to let people know about an event that's going on, or just stay top of mind. And we have a customer who sends a dad joke every week for his pizzeria, and it's just part of his brand. There's no discount attached, but he literally has people joining his text club just to hear the dad joke every week. They think it's a gimmick and it's fun, and he stays top of mind because of that brand relationship that he had. And it's like Dad's Pizzeria. And so it's part of his brand, it's part of what he does, but he doesn't have to do a discount.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are certain types of businesses that if you have events going on locally, you can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a local sports team, you can hype that up. And hey, if they cross this level of points by halftime, we're going to do X, Y, or Z. You can engage in these different ways. One of the things that Boostly has really focused on over the last year or two has been, how do we build in new novel forms of engagement that help brands to stand out and just perform higher than just sending a text with a promotion code. And so we've started building a lot of novel gamified types of texting, where like one of those, we call it the lottery text, where it's as simple as, hey, reply with a number 1 to 100 for a chance to win a free pizza or to get XYZ. And a small percentage of people will win. The If you don't select the right number, it's going to give you a consolation prize. And when we were first testing this, it was a phenomenal experience, because if you send the exact same promotion with just a promo code, you might get 3 to 5% of your audience to engage with that. But if when people get this gamified version, we're getting 40 to 50% of the entire audience to actually engage.
Whoa.
And that type of gamification makes a big, big difference. And so we've gone through and gone and like patented a lot of these unique text types and things that we go and do that just gamify the experience.
Wow.
And it could be the exact same message, but that gamification increases the engagement. You can do things like texting your customers to ask for feedback, or asking them to, leave a review, or to make a reservation, or to refer a friend, or, capturing their birthday information so you can do things surrounding their birthday. There are a lot of these different unique use cases, and you can take that to the next level if the texting provider actually has insight into the life cycle of the customer. What are they buying? How frequently are they purchasing? And then being able to tailor that consumer's experience to their engagement with the brand. That's another way to dramatically improve the engagement, where instead of it just being a mass marketing message to everybody where they get the same thing, if you know you haven't engaged with us as a business in 6 months, I want to send you something very different from someone who engages once a month. And those types of insights are crucial. And there are only a handful of texting companies that have that type of technology to be able to do it. there are other brands that you see doing this where they hire big marketing teams and data analysts to pull it off, but it can be done through technology through people like a Boostly.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I recently got some messages from Tacos 180 that sounded a lot like this. Is that somebody you guys work with?
Yeah, they're one of our customers.
Okay, I figured as much. I was like, oh, this is sounding similar to what I got from them. It was cool. I don't really like. I'm not much of a promo guy. I'm like, if I'm going to eat there, I'm going to eat there. So just like back off. But I did respond to a couple of them. They were clever too. I found it interesting. So now I've experienced Boostly personally. Um,
Fabulous. Love that.
yeah, that's cool. So tell me, man, there was something just a few minutes ago. I was like, oh, we got to talk to people about this. Oh, let's shift gears. Like if we're talking, so we're talking about restaurants right now and food and things like that. There are a lot of service industries like personal service, like health wellness. I just want to share another insight too about ways that people are using texting right now that's creating engagement that's not always a promo because you don't want to discount your clients to death because then they always come to your store expecting to get a discount and you kind of undermine the value of your food, undermine the value of your professional services. So I love that you're providing these kind of cool new ways and tips. One thing I've seen work extremely well is whatever your industry is, whatever service people are looking for you to provide to them. Generally speaking, if you can break out, let's say 7 or 8 insightful tips about that service. So let's say somebody comes in for a facial at a health spa, then you should have a text sequence of some sort that's like that reaches out over a certain period of time. Like maybe message one is, "Hey, FYI, best way to keep your skin nice, soft, and supple after you have your first facial is blah blah blah," right? And then the next message might be, "Hey, it's been a few weeks. If you want to come in and get another facial with our cool new bio cream or whatever, then come on in. We'll give you 15% off the service." Because to your point, but you got to come in before the end of the month for this to be valid, right? Create some
Yep.
urgency, but you start to interlace value-added touches. Hey, self-care. If you grind up banana peels at home and put it on your face, or like whatever those things are. I don't know anything about skincare, by the way, but obviously, those things interspersed with promotional, they start to create a brand that's there to provide help and service, whether or not you're giving them money. You become a trusted resource and expert, and then you also stay top of mind by just giving value constantly. So I'm sure you guys do the same thing, but I've seen things like that before in some of the industries that aren't food. But in the food industry, you could do some pretty cool stuff with that too. Like, hey, I know you love our tacos. Hey, let me tell you how you can make carnitas at home. People are still going to come and buy your
Yeah.
carnitas because they can't replicate your recipe. They don't want to do dishes. They don't know how to cook, right? But doing things like that, I think, gives them an impression that you're a value adding resource in their life, not just a place where they transact.
Certainly. And you can, if we're thinking of different industries that are going to be using texting, there are some similar to a gym where a gym is you're not paying every time you come to the gym. And their purpose behind texting is generally not to get new people signing up because you're talking to your existing audience, but
Right.
you're trying to increase engagement and get people coming in. And if they join a class or you're giving them a fitness tip every other week or a nutrition tip, those types of things are interesting to the audience, build engagement with the brand, even if they're not coming on site, and helps with retention and referrals and all of those types of things. And
Yeah.
to your point, it's a mistake if you only build off of a discount. In many industries, like some places like pizza can build off of discounts completely, but most can't. And you don't have to.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, pizza, if we go back to pizza, you can be sending them text messages saying, "Hey, did you know that we have a new Sicilian pizza?"
Yep.
No.
Pizza of the month, and try this combination of flavors and check out this new menu item. There's so much that you can text about. And if you are a business that has a loyalty type program, you can combine the two and say, hey, there's extra loyalty points this weekend if you come in. You don't have to give a discount, just leverage your loyalty program.
Right. And also, I love the dad joke group. Remember your brand. If you have a fun, playful brand, and let's say you're a pizza group, hey, we got a new pizza flavor. It's the peanut butter and jam pizza with bacon. Come on in and try it. and then text them like 5 minutes later, just kidding, that's disgusting. But we do have a Sicilian that just came out, right? Like be
Yeah.
playful and fun. Like if that's your brand, if you're like a stoic, like white white linen type of a restaurant, clearly not the move. But anyway, I think you can have a lot of fun. Those are the text messages that I'll actually read that are promotional. Is well, if they've put some creative prowess into it, because I'm fascinated with the idea and I want to share it with my clients.
Yeah, I love that. And I imagine you might work with some moving franchises and those types of movers. Put a GIF in there of a guy like moving a couch, like things that just capture their attention. Because part of what you're doing is you're just trying to capture their attention so that when they think of the service that you provide, you are in the top 3 to 5 people that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the strategy is that billboard effect of staying top of mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that every single person, every time they get a text, they come and transact. It's when they're looking for the service or they're thinking about it. Now I know, oh, I got a text from that company a couple weeks ago. I should check them out.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about the Black Friday effect a little bit. When do you start getting all your marketing messages for Black Friday?
I mean,
End of October now, right? It's like, hey, Black
yeah.
Friday special coming up on November 1st. You're like, what? It's moved forward because people are starting to think once Halloween's over, it's like, oh, Thanksgiving, but it's I gotta get ready for Christmas shopping. And so they've moved further and further up with their promotions and their discounts, and they're trying to capture your dollar first before the cards are maxed out in retail. But you have to think in terms of like when is the customer thinking about your service? You're a pizza joint. When is that mom or that dad thinking the most about pizza? Is it at noon today or is it 4:30 when they're like, oh crap, I don't have a plan for dinner tonight? Like what do you find works best there, Shane? Like how does timing impact the way and deliverability of that message impact the response rate?
Yeah, it's crucial where if you are this is the nice thing about texting too. You can drive customers in for a very specific time window.
Mm-hmm.
And so your strategy of what you're trying to accomplish will dictate this. If you're just looking to maximize the amount of revenue, um, and let's say you are in the food industry, you're likely going to text people, you know, on a like Friday, at 4 o'clock when they aren't thinking about dinner yet, but their body's starting to get hungry. And the moment they see that text, they're like, "Oh man, my mouth is watering right now."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna text my wife and say, "Hey, what if I pick up pizza on the way home?" But you want to do it right before they would normally be evaluating alternatives.
Yep.
Um, and so if you're just looking for to like maximize revenue, that would be the time that most people would send in the food industry. You might also have a different hope of, hey, Tuesdays are really slow, or my lunches, I want to bolster business. So I'm gonna text people at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays to try and get that lunch rush a little bit stronger
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesdays, which is my slower time of the week. And you can drive people in that way. And you can have the expiration times be like a 3 day window, a 7 day window, a today only to
Mm-hmm.
build that urgency. But timing wise, the general rule of thumb is right before people would be thinking of evaluating the alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And in the home service industry, I talk to people about this all the time. The time to start re-engaging your audience, your old dead leads, your rehashing people never bought is tax return season. Huge, right? Like
Yeah.
when are people thinking about doing home improvement projects when they know they've got a check coming from the government for their tax return? They generally spend a lot of that on your services or another service that might be related to that cyclical buying process with consumer goods, household goods. But yeah, it's perfect. The way you said that is exactly right. What are they considering, right? What are people generally considering, and then start re-engaging at that time. So
Yeah.
love it. So let's shift if you don't mind. So guys, I hope you've gathered a couple of good ideas, and this not even if you're not a pizza operating business, we try to give some examples there, but take the concept and apply it to your franchise, apply it to your business model, and leverage creativity, leverage your voice, do some creative fun things. If you're looking for gamification, that's pretty rad. Actually, I love what you're doing there. But let's shift over into measuring results. How do you recommend people look at texting and measure it, and then use that data to drive decision making and modifying behavior.
Yeah, so I think this is another one that historically in the SMS space, um, people have struggled with for a really long time because people get a text and they say, "Hey, like mention mention this text to get the offer," but you have no tracking to know how many people actually used it. Did they come in because of this? And so measuring results historically has been a challenge. But if you can measure your results, whether that's through promo codes or having a documentation system so that when somebody calls in and they say, "I got the text," or they give you a, they mention XYZ, that's getting documented. It's important so that you can alter your strategy
Mm-hmm.
because you can just shoot from the hip and send the things that you think are going to work, and that might not land with the consumer. And the more data you have, the better decisions you will make and the more money you will make per dollar that you spend on marketing. And so often what we do with our system is we've built some like redemption processes so that we know how many people are redeeming things through the phone, through an in-person experience, or through an online process. And every single text that goes out, we're measuring the effectiveness. How
Mm-hmm.
many people engaged with it? And this might be clicking a link or redeeming the offer, um, whatever the call to action and goal is. And we're measuring how many people are engaging with that, what type of revenue is coming from that. So we can then go at the end of a cycle and say, "Hey, this these two are your top performers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep doing those and take the other ones out." And what insights can we get from that? Well, we're learning there's a large portion of your audience that cares more about a percentage off than a dollar off. Or um, the audience is engaging with those facial tips of post care after your first facial and how to continue to have those effects. If that's what your audience is engaging with, how do I do more of that and spend more of my time there? But if you aren't measuring the results and what's working, then you're going to keep sending things that are disengaging your audience, and people will reply stop to opt out, and you'll never have a shot to keep marketing to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So measuring engagement keeps your customers not only coming back and spending more, but it also keeps that channel open for you to be able to engage with them in the future.
Yeah, I love it. You know, a couple of thoughts come to my mind because some people who aren't using Boostly, maybe it's not a great fit, or they've got something else they're using. But there are a lot of ways to measure text engagement. We did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a gentleman that was talking about generally measuring marketing impact. And obviously you don't want to change three things at once, right? If you're gonna be trying to measure something and get tactical or get very surgical with it, you need to control variables, right? But you could do, let's say you want to send out 500 text messages to somebody with a promo, split the audience into two groups and do an A/B test. And then when people are calling in with their order, like, hey, I got the text. I need to tell you about Murph's double, or try a different tactic and have a different call-in phrase. And then you can even
Yep.
have a sticky note on the counter where they just tally like which one they're responding to. That's data, guys. So don't feel like you have to have a system that does everything for you. It's better to systematize it, but you can do this with good old-fashioned tally sheets at the phone so that, and people make sure that they're doing it. So then at the end of the night, you might say 37 people responded to, Dave's special, and 37 and 20 people responded to Amy's special. Let's do the Dave special again and then try a different one to replace it, right? It's
Yep.
simple, but it's really important. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and one of the core things to do is make sure that you have different phrases or codes or offers that you can actually identify. If
Yeah.
if everybody says Murph's double, but one's a 15% off and one's a 10% off, and you're just tracking that, you just know, oh, people are texting. You
Mm-hmm.
want to know, you have to be able to differentiate them. And it sounds basic, but we've also seen plenty of people who are like, oh,
Yeah.
I missed that and I didn't get the data because I didn't use a different promo code for this. Or things of that nature.
Yeah, no, it seems simplistic, but The marketers are like, yeah, duh. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm not doing that very well. It's important. It's important. Otherwise, your efforts that you might increase door swings, but you don't know why. And that's why you got to control the variables, measure two. Like there's a reason why nobody talks about ABC testing, right? It's A/B testing. Pick two routes,
Yep.
measure them, make them distinct. It's beautiful advice, and frankly, anyone can do that today. You can do it with emails. You can do it with text. You can do it with other strategies, with ads on Google, whatever you're doing. Test two anytime you can.
Yeah, and you can even do this with the same offer, but test the messaging on it or the picture that you send with it,
Yeah.
but only test like one variable at a time. Either test two different offers or test the messaging with the same offer so that you can find what's working and then double down on that.
Hmm.
One of the challenges with this is some people try to change multiple variables and you never know what it was that changed
Yeah.
or that led to the new impact.
Was it the picture, the really close-up picture of the pizza, or was it the fact that you're offering 15% off today instead of 12% off yesterday? Like you don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, one variable. Tell me a little bit. So Shane, you've been doing this for quite a while and working in franchises for quite a while. What would you say are just a couple of pieces of parting wisdom for folks that they really ought to pay attention to that can help them scale their business tomorrow when it comes to using text effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that can frequently be forgotten is with texting specifically, you will the the amount of success that you have, especially dollar wise from text marketing,
Hmm.
will be in relation to how big of an audience you have opted in. And so putting a lot of focus on building that opt-in list is one of the most valuable things that you can do to make this an effective channel.
Yeah.
If every single person acts on your offer and you're sending it to 10 people, that's great. But if you have, if you're texting 500 people versus 10, you're going to get more revenue at the end of the day because your audience is bigger. And so really focus on building that audience, incentivize people to join that text club, and that will end up leading you to more results and more revenue at the end of the day. That would be my parting piece of advice.
Yeah, I love it. And do that by in a way that keeps your opt-in compliance nice and clean, and you're in a safe position to market and build a business. I love it. So Shane, last question for you. If somebody wanted to reach out to you and say, all right, Shane, I got questions, I got concerns. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you so they can get those questions answered?
Yeah, if they're trying to reach out to me directly, LinkedIn tends to be a good place for me. Shane Murphy at Boostly, you'll find me. Um, you can also go to boostly.com and reach out to us there. And if you're looking for me specifically, Shane at boostly.com will get me. Um, if you're trying to just learn more about our services in general, just go to our website and we will help you.
Yeah, good. You're a good man. I'm sure if they go to your website and fill out a form, you'll probably text them relatively quickly and get in touch. Anyway, you've been great, Shane. Thanks for shedding some light on some topics that are really relevant right now and important. And man, wish you all the luck. Thanks for being on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Shane.